Hey guys, my name is Amy Jane and welcome back to my channel. Today, I have a guest star with me.
Hi.
So this is my husband, Richie, and several months back we posted a fun video where it was titled Get to Know
Your Spouse? Getting to know your spouse?
How well do you know your spouse? How well do you know your spouse?
I won.
And you might have won. And it was really fun. And now that we have been stuck inside together hour after hour for about a month now, we decided that one of the things we were going to do was try and get to know each other even better. We've been married coming up 5 years, and one of the ways that we've been getting to know each other a little bit better is by using these table talk cards. And my mom got this as a gift a while back, and we've been just having fun using them on the occasion. So I will link this in the description box below, but basically it's just fun conversation starters, just some fun questions to get to know your family, your friends, your roommate, your spouse a little bit better.
Or a random stranger.
If you have them in your house, then sure, why not? Table toppers. What Halloween costumes do you most remember?
So most of my Halloween costumes were in the form of face paint and lots of snow gear. I always looked like the little kid from Christmas Story, couldn't put his arms down. So I grew up in a very cold mountain town, and so by Halloween most years it was very cold and snowy. So usually it was just like a fun face paint, like my mom would do, you know, Spider-Man or Batman or whatever, and then snow gear.
I'm trying to think of what the most memorable was. I went as a zombie cheerleader one year. I went as a clown, which ended up looking like a really sad clown because I was maybe 4 or 5. I'll insert a picture right now. Oh, here's another one. I remember going as, I don't know if it was an 80s rocker or something. Again, I'll insert another picture, but this was another memorable one for me. The fake pom-pom hair, the socks in plastic high heels, very classic and classy.
Yes.
It was a whole look. It was a whole look.
Called? What was your love object when you were little?
Like something that we liked when we were little? Like a blanket or something?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had a little bear, I remember. Called him Barry. Pretty original. I remember dressing him up in a Hawaiian shirt, because that's what you do when you live in a cold mountain town.
Is pretend that you're in the warmth of Hawaii.
Oh, I also had a bear blanket. Me and bears, that's kind of a weird one.
I've had a lot of things since I was a kid, but I can't say that there was a love object that I attached to. I'd have to ask my mom. Mom, write in the comments what was my love object as a kid. What's special about your family?
My family. My family's special because I'm in it. I think super special is that we were really close growing up. We all lived in the same town for a really long time. You know, my aunt and uncle lived a few blocks away. My grandparents lived a few blocks away. I had other aunts and uncles and cousins all around. So we saw each other pretty frequently.
I'd say what's special about my family, the first person that comes to mind is my mom. She is an extremely hardworking, loyal mom. She worked really hard to make my childhood and just growing up awesome. We moved away from California to Colorado, which changed the dynamic of my family, obviously. And so both my mom's side and dad's side at that point ended up putting up a lot of effort into keeping our relationship strong. And so I would go back to California once or twice a year, and I'm still just as strong with him, even though we've lived thousands of miles away since I was only 6 months old.
What family story have you heard once too often?
I just thought of the perfect one for you.
For me?
When they thought you were a girl.
Oh, I've heard that one a lot. Back in the day, it was very common that people would only have one or no ultrasounds. My mom was really sick when she was pregnant with me, and they had to do an ultrasound to make sure I was okay. And they just so happened to be able to see whether I was a boy or a girl. But he said I was supposed to be a girl, that my name was going to be Brittany Ray, which is the worst name.
If your name is Brittany Ray, it's not the worst name in the world.
This is true. Worst. Okay, we'll have to cut that part out. The day that I was born, they'd been in the hospital for a long time, and my dad he's the first one that sees that I'm a boy, and he's super excited. I have 2 older sisters, so I'm the first boy in the family, and he's really excited, and nobody's around So he runs down to the cafeteria in the hospital to see my grandparents there. He's all excited and cheering, and they're like, "What's wrong, Rich? What's wrong?" He's like, "It's a boy, it's a boy." And they're just trying to calm him down, saying, "It's okay, Rich. We know you wanted a boy. It's okay." And he had to continue reaffirming them that I was a boy. And I had to go home in, I think, yellow, because I didn't have anything blue.
I don't have any family stories that are as good as that, so we'll just leave it to Brittany Ray. What music reminds you of childhood?
I remember the first CD that my dad ever bought me. It was Tub Thumper by Chumbawamba. I get knocked down,
Oh,
but I get up again.
They're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down.
Which I didn't realize until growing up, when I got older, that I realized that entire song was about getting plastered with your friends, but it's okay because you get up again.
But when you're 5.
When you're 5, it was just a great tune.
And what was your first concert?
Well, like I said in the earlier question, I have 2 older sisters, so I got drug around to whatever they wanted to go to. So my first concert was NSYNC and Britney Spears.
That's the perfect concert combination for Brittany Ray.
Gosh, I'll never live that down.
My first concert was Neil Diamond, and that was actually when the ball dropped 1999 into 2000. My mom had great taste in music, so we listened to a lot of awesome country, Tim McGraw, Kenny Chesney, Garth Brooks, Lionel Richie, Boys to Men, and then of course I liked all the 90s junk as well. That now I look back and I'm like, it's not as junky as I thought. What's currently coming out? That's the real junk.
Pretty junky.
Do you have any superstitions? So superstitions as in like black cats and walking under ladders?
Yeah, things like that. Break a mirror and 7 years bad luck or whatever.
I don't think I have any now. However, when I was a teen driver, every time I'd go through a red, which was not many times,
just the one time that
I would
mattered.
tap the top of the car. Yeah, I don't believe in superstitions anymore, though.
No. I guess so. I did acting a lot growing up. I guess it was rooted in superstition probably, but more so just like a tradition. But whenever people go on stage or whenever they're ready to perform for the night, you always say, break a leg. And that's just a weird thing because you don't say that in any other event, like a sporting event. You would never tell someone going to play their basketball state championship to break a leg because that would be pretty rude. But in theater, it was never good luck to say good luck. You would always say break a leg. What world events did your family watch on TV together?
We watched World Cup for soccer and the Olympics. I do remember watching the news about Princess Diana dying, and of course the World Trade Center. I was in 5th grade. I remember we got home and my mom and I sat and watched the news.
So the Super Bowl, there's especially one specific Super Bowl, I want to say it was 95 maybe. They had filmed a Pepsi commercial in my hometown, and one of my good friends, or a couple of my good friends actually, were in the commercial. And so the whole town, we're, like I said, a tiny little town, so everyone is in tune to the Super Bowl, even if they don't watch the Super Bowl normally, because they want to see the Pepsi commercial that was filmed in that town. We're watching the Super Bowl, life's great, super fun time, and it was obviously in February. They had a big snowstorm, the power went out in the whole town, and nobody got to watch the commercial and the rest of the Super Bowl. I remember watching the Columbine news after the Columbine shooting and kind of seeing some of that and just wondering what's wrong with the world. World Trade Center, similarly. I think it was in jazz band practice. A friend of mine told me about it, and I didn't even know what the World Trade Centers were. What have you lost that you would like to find? Whoa. Well, recently, one of my favorite socks, I'm missing the other one. So, I mean, I'm not going to lie. If I could find it, it'd be pretty great.
I feel like once I've lost something, I adjust. It's not dead to me, but I adjust and I go on with life without it.
I guess not necessarily lost, but like some of my first cars that I ever owned, if I could go back and re-own them again, that would be pretty awesome. I had this old Chevy Impala that was my grandparents. They bought brand new, drove from California to Colorado in. Similarly, I had an old truck that had been passed around in our family for a long time. Most things, especially if I lost it, I've either forgotten that I've lost it and therefore I don't care, or I just moved on.
I almost lost my wedding ring a
Oh
couple
my
times.
gosh.
And that I would certainly hope that I would find again, but I did find it again. But I was an idiot, and I used to work at Natural Grocers, and I would go to put lotion on my hands, so I would take my ring off and I would set it on the shelf with all these tiny little items that we sold. And as I'm putting lotion on, somebody, sure enough, would break my focus. All I'd be thinking is, don't forget your ring, don't forget your ring, don't forget your ring. And then a customer would come up to me and say, hey, can you help me? And I'd go, sure. And I'd walk off and leave my wedding ring, sometimes for hours. One time I left it overnight. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I try to forget.
But I love this ring, and I'm so happy that I did not lose it. So thank you, Lord. What would you love to collect?
If money was no object?
Yeah, no, money's no object.
Okay.
What would you love to collect?
The first thing I could think of is just old classic cars. Most cars that are old are way cooler than any of the new cars that are out there right now.
I don't want to collect anything.
Memories.
Memories, yes, and maybe photographs, scrapbooks,
Yeah.
but I don't like knickknacks or tons of things everywhere.
True.
I like to just kind of have what I need then.
Is there any holiday tradition that you dread?
Holiday tradition that I dread? No. All of them bring good things. The only one that I don't like now is probably Valentine's Day, because last Valentine's Day, you and I were going to go on a date. It was like our monthly date that we had planned, and it was packed, and we were like, what is going on? Why is it so busy? And it was because it was Valentine's Day, and I was like, ugh, you can't even eat out on Valentine's Day like a normal date. But if you're single, maybe it's more fun to go on, like have a reason to go on dates. So I think now just Valentine's Day when you're married is just a busier day where you can't do what you want to do.
True.
What's your favorite story about your grandmother? Did you just think of one?
Yeah. So first of all, my grandmother is the coolest grandmother out there. And she's like the life of the party. We'd always have friends over. We lived at my grandparents' house for a long time when we were growing up. So we'd have big groups of friends over. We'd play games like catchphrase or any game that we really played. And she was always in the middle of it. We'd be up, way past midnight, and she was up with us the whole time and still got up way before me. I don't know how she did it. After most holiday big meals, after a little while, we'd go for a walk. And I'm just being goofy, my little self, and I start kind of walking with like a little bit of a gangster swag, so to speak.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because, I'm gangster, pretty cool. And my grandmother, out of nowhere, I'm walking in front of her, she just kind of like hits me on the shoulder and goes, that ain't gangster, this is. And she starts walking like a gangster, has her hat turned sideways, and we are all just busting up laughing. And I wish I had that on film.
Which, by the way, to paint the picture a little bit more, she's like, what, 5'1"?
Oh, 4'9", 4'10".
Okay.
She's pretty short, little
Cute
Hispanic
little.
lady.
That's funny.
But I would never mess with her.
No, certainly not. One of the stories that comes to mind for me is about my grandma Nancy. My Aunt Karen, if I'm remembering this correctly, my Aunt Karen had gotten a pogo stick for her birthday or for Christmas or something, and she wanted to bounce on it in the house. And my grandmother was like, don't you jump on that pogo stick in the house, that's for outside, etc., etc. And for whatever reason, she went to get on the pogo stick to show my Aunt Karen, her daughter, how to use it properly. And she went on it, and I think it was only once or twice, as my mom tells the story, and it hit a rug, and she flew off of the thing, hit the TV stand, and the large TV dropped into her lap. And so she's holding it, and she's like yelling at the kids, like, help me get this thing off of my lap. And the kids were in her face and were going, now, Mom, don't jump on the pogo stick indoors. That's for outdoors.
What physical characteristics do you have from your family?
Ooh.
Well, definitely the dark hair, dark eyes.
Yeah, his family is Italian and Hispanic, so kind of the medium tone skin, dark hair, brown eyes. Also, you're pretty like medium to maybe upper average or whatever height, because
that's true.
a lot of the women in your family are extremely small, like 5 feet or below, but then your dad is over 6 foot. So that's how I think you and your sisters have any height to you at all.
Yeah, my mom always would jokingly say that she did her part by marrying a tall person.
I was going to say sarcasm, but that's not a physical characteristic.
Red hair?
The red hair. So my dad, I believe, had like strawberry-ish hair. My mom has pretty blonde hair, but it's reddish on the bottom, or in light you can see that it's a little bit red. My brother, Joel, also has reddish hair in his beard. The pale skin, I guess we're all pale. There's no German, Italian and no Hispanic blood on this side. How did your grandfather ask your grandmother to marry him?
I don't know the marriage story. I know the way they met and how he asked her out on their first date. That's kind of a fun story. So my grandparents grew up, or at least at this point in their life, they were in the same little town that I grew up in. And my grandfather was he was old enough to drive, but I think they were in high school. I don't remember the whole story. But he was out riding with his friends, cruising down Main Street, because that's what you do in a small town. And I think he was upset because there was some dance or something, maybe all his friends, but all his friends had dates this Friday night, for instance. And he was upset because he didn't have a date. And so he was, it was a convertible car of some kind. So he's sitting up the top of the convertible while it's driving down Main Street. And he said the first girl that he was going to see, he was going to ask out. And he happened to see my grandmother walking down the street. I don't know if she just came out of the store or if she was just walking down the street, but he literally jumped out of his friend's car and ran and asked her on a date. And they are now been happily married for over 50 years.
Guys, take notes. If you're having a hard time dating, screw Tinder, screw all the dating apps. Just the next woman you see, jump out of your car, approach her, and I wish you the best of luck. I don't know of how they asked them to get married. So family members, if you know how Grandma Nancy or Grandma Julie was asked to get married, leave it in the comments or let me know, because I would love to know. Let's do maybe 2 more.
Dos más.
Dos más. Where was your family during World War II?
Whoa. Do you even know?
So what were the years of World War II then?
Hey Google, when did World War II start?
World War II was from September 1st, 1939 to September 2nd, 1945.
My whole family was in Illinois. I know for sure that both grandmothers on both the mom's side and dad's side were in, I believe, Decatur, Illinois.
Their family, I remember, at least on my mom's side, they were in the same part of New Mexico that my grandparents live now, and they had a small ranch, so they probably not a whole lot had changed. What is the most surprising thing you have learned about your family?
My grandmother, Nancy, after her and my grandfather divorced, that years later, she actually ran off with someone.
I remember this story.
Mr. Alexander, was that his name?
I don't remember.
I think that was his name, but she ran off with him because at the time interracial marriage was, or really interracial relationships in general were frowned upon, and he was African American, and so my grandmother essentially kind of ran off and dated him for many years.
Well, I think growing up, I mean, like I said, I grew up in the same town. My grandparents had lived there for a long time. My parents lived there, so I kind of assumed we were all from there. It wasn't until I was older, a little bit older at least, that I realized that my dad was born in New York City. My mom was born in San Diego, so opposite ends of the United States, if you're not familiar. And then they meet and get married in this tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. This was fun.
It was fun. Quarantine questions. Is that what we should call this? Until the quarantine's over, and then it's just questions.
If there's any question that we asked and you have an answer that you want to share, feel free to put it down in the
comments below. We'd love to read about your family history and all of that. Get to know each other during the quarantine. It's been fun. We've done a lot of Zoom and FaceTime, as I'm sure a lot of you guys have, and a lot of the questions are you getting sick of Richie yet, or is he getting sick of you, or are you guys, feeling a little too cooped up? And the answer is no, which is surprising. I think more so for him than it is for me. But yeah, it's been fun to do other different little hobbies and what have you, but sometimes in the morning when we're drinking our coffee, or in the afternoon when we're trying to get off of the screen and not spend hours on Netflix and what have you. We've been doing these questions and it's been pretty fun to kind of learn about each other a little bit more. So
Yeah,
that's our challenge for you. Get to know your household. Don't get together with people outside of your household, but either Zoom or FaceTime these questions with other people, or whether it be your roommate, your family members, your spouse, whoever, ask them questions, get to know them a little bit better. Utilize this time well. If you're bored, you can go watch some of my other videos. I have ones on art, on makeup, on biblical topics.
food.
I'll link some of them below. Yeah, food, nutrition. If you're sick of seeing just my face in the videos and you want to see more with Richie in them,
Nobody.
then like and subscribe to my channel, and we'll post more of these probably coming up for as long as the quarantine goes on and maybe beyond that. So we hope you guys are safe.
Ta-ta for now. Hasta la vista, baby.
Bye. Today I have a guest star with me. No. That freaking hurt. Okay. Hey.
No, it's yours.
It's my turn.
You're gonna edit that out.
Yo.
Do your thing.
Do that thing up. Let me make it roll. Whoa.
We'll pull this guy.
We're gonna have fun, boo.